that these things, this insecurity that I struggled with throughout my life became crippling to me. So that was the first time I started talking about my dad going to prison. I never knew what the name of it was. Insecurity, got that low self-esteem, understood that. You know, I would have the vest, the gauchos, the boots. Hello, everybody. It's Keisha Lance Bottoms. That's the name of my new YouTube channel. I'm so excited. I've done media work. Maybe you've seen me on some of the major networks, but now I get an opportunity just to be me, meaning that I get to talk about what I want to talk about when I want to talk about it, and we get to have some fun with this. So someone said to me, Terry Vaughn said to me, right now I'm living in the flow, and that's absolutely right. Now that I'm not in office, I'm getting to explore new things, have fun with some things I haven't had a chance to do since I was mayor of Atlanta and working at the White House. So hope that you enjoy it. We're just going to pick some topics and talk about some things, and if you like it, let me know, and if you don't, then tune in to somewhere else. But today, we are going to talk about imposter syndrome. Maybe you've heard this term, imposter syndrome, and women, especially Black women, talk about imposter syndrome because there's so many layers to it. And this is something that women of all races really struggle with. Professional women, women who are put into new situations where they may not be as comfortable. But essentially, imposter syndrome is when you don't feel worthy. It's when you believe that you haven't earned the right to have a seat at the table. And I particularly talk about African American women because for so many of us, this is our first time in the room. Our parents sometimes didn't have these opportunities. There's sometimes people, we grow up in communities where we don't see these examples, and then we go into these really big rooms. And although we have worked our tails off, 10 times as hard, 20 times as hard to get into the room, we don't feel like we deserve to be there. And again, I know that this is particular to women of all races, but obviously I'm speaking just as an African American woman. And people would look at me as mayor and they would think, oh, she's got it all together. Look at her, I could never do that. And I cannot tell you how many times in my head I was in my head. It didn't matter that I had a seat at the table or that I had worked really hard to earn the space. I just didn't think that I deserved it. And there are layers to that. That goes back to generational unresolved issues on, are we smart enough? Are we good enough? Does somebody know something that we don't know? Do we deserve to have a seat at the table? And for me, sometimes it was paralyzing. There would be times I would walk in the rooms and I would have almost complete panic attacks. And the interesting part, a lot of times it was when I was in front of other African American women, which you would think that's where I would feel most comfortable. But when I would walk into certain rooms, it's almost like I would know, like I just felt like the layers were being peeled off. And I'm a big person on energy. I tend to absorb what's around me. If it's good energy, then it lifts me up. If it's bad energy, sometimes it throws me off. And when you're running for office, you're always being judged. And then when you're being judged by your own people, that becomes even more challenging. And I literally would walk in the rooms and have almost complete full-blown panic attacks, my heart beating, sweating, voice trembling. And I really had to think through, what was that all about? Why didn't I think that I was worthy? Why didn't I think I deserved to be there? Because what I knew is that I worked harder than most everybody else in the room with me as an elected official. I was smart. I had all the credentials. I finished high school, I finished college, I had a law degree. And even, I'll just go back a few steps, even when I got my law degree, I remembered when I took the bar exam, because when you go to law school, you have to take the bar exam to be able to practice law. When I got my bar results, at that time I was 21. No, I'm sorry, I was 24. I was 21 when I graduated from college. I just turned 24 in January, took the bar that February. At that time, we could take it in our third year of law school. When I got the results several months later, I thought it was a mistake because I had passed. And I kept waiting on somebody to call me or write me a letter and tell me that I hadn't really passed the bar exam. It didn't matter that I had studied for months on end. A lot of people don't pass it the first time. Didn't matter I put the work in, but I really believed that I had failed and they had made a mistake. And that really was just indicative of some bigger issues that I still struggle with. It's when I realized insecurity is something I've always dealt with. So even as a little girl, I wanted my hair to be different. I wanted my legs to be different. I mean, you name it. I wanted something different. I remember when I was in elementary school, at this time, my parents were still together, so my mom could go shop in really nice places. My mom is very fashionable, so whatever adult version of clothes were out, that's what she was dressing me in. You know, I would have the vest, the gauchos, the boots. And it's funny because when I see people from elementary school, I cannot tell you how many people talk about these red boots that I used to have. And in fact, I still have one. I don't know why I just have one. But anyway, but even then, like, I just wanted to be regular like the other kids. So I remember that time the 3/4 length sweaters were out and you could belt them at the waist. That's what all the women were wearing. So of course I had a kid version of it. And all of my friends had the little cardigan sweaters. Well, they could take their cardigan sweaters and make baby dolls. Some kind of way you could wrap it up and turn it into a baby doll. But I couldn't do that with a 3/4 length sweater. I just want the cardigan sweater. And what I realized, like even these little childhood moments, I realized that was about something bigger. I sometimes wonder, when I was a little girl, my first memories are of us living in London, England. And I was the only black girl. I didn't know any black people. I sometimes wonder, was there something I began to internalize being the only one in these environments? Or, you know, little girls with the long blonde hair and, you know, I didn't like my hair because it wasn't long enough, it wasn't straight enough, or, you know, when I was around my cousin who had long, beautiful, wavy hair, my hair wasn't curly enough. But what I realized, I can point to, just like I can get these childhood examples, I can point to different things at different parts in my life where I really struggled with, am I enough? Nothing was ever good enough. It was this incessant need to be something other than what I was. And what I realized when I ran for mayor, that these things, this insecurity that I struggled with throughout my life became crippling to me. This gnawing, nagging, I'm not enough, you're not good enough, you're not enough. It was stopping me from really my destiny, because I truly believe, you know, I'm a woman of faith. I prayed about running for mayor, so I knew that I should run. But I was so internalizing these insecurities that it was stopping me from doing what I believed had been put in my heart to do. That's when I really had to confront it. Like, what is this about? What is this that since childhood you struggled with insecurity? That no matter what you have or how much you do well, it's always not good enough. I really had to very quickly confront that. And then I started hearing this term, imposter syndrome. I never knew what the name of it was. Insecurity, got that, low self-esteem, understood that. But imposter syndrome, like, this is really a disease. And it also helped me because I realized I wasn't the only one who was struggling like that. That there are other people, there are other women who have these same struggles, that they work their tails off to get to where they are. And then we self-sabotage because we're so insecure. We're wearing it like a coat when we walk in the room. I remember as a teenager that would always be like this, my arms like this. And my mother would say, unfold your arms. You look so insecure when you do that. And I didn't understand what that was, but it really was like I was covering myself. And when I was running for mayor and I would go into rooms and people would say that I was unapproachable. And they thought it was about something else, that I thought maybe I was better than other people, or it was conceit or arrogance or whatever you want to call it. It was insecurity because my mother had stopped me from folding my arms, so I could walk in the room without folding my arms. But the insecurity was still there. And when you are running for office and you want people to support you, you got to peel back the layers. So that was the first time I started talking about my dad going to prison and things I'd never talked about publicly before, because I had to make people understand why things mattered to me and to understand why I was so guarded. And I learned there is a name. It's called imposter syndrome. And I'd be darned if I wasn't suffering from it. The way that I've gotten past imposter syndrome is just to own who I am. And part of that has just come through maturity, but also knowing, and part of it's driven by my faith, knowing that God created me to be who I am. If he wanted me to be somebody else, if he wanted me to operate like somebody else and think like somebody else, he wouldn't have given me the set of experiences and the challenges that I've had in my life that's made me me. And I own that. And what I can now appreciate is that everybody has a first day at something. So when I was mayor, I would say every new mayor is a new mayor, meaning we all show up on the first day for something, whether it's the first day of school, first day at our job. Now, some people do a much better job in BSing than other people, but just own who you are. Because if you don't own your space in the room, then that space is not going to be filled. Who's going to speak for your community if you're not speaking for your community? There are a lot of people who do a good job in looking like they have it all together and that they were just built like this. They never struggled a day in their life. It's a lie. Everybody struggles. Everybody has insecurities. Everybody has their self-doubts. But just know that you really are enough. It's something that I have to constantly remind myself about. And I hope that you remember that too. And whatever journey you're facing or challenges you're facing, you are enough. And it's a reason you're in the rooms that you are in. There's a reason you have a seat at the table. Own that seat, own who you are, and represent all that you were created to be. So thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. Please comment below. Give me some topics that you want me to talk about. My mother used to call me Chatty Cathy when I was a little kid. So I can talk about lots of things, try and tell you what I know and don't know. But I'd love to know what you'd like to hear more about from me. So please put a comment, let me know what you want to talk about, and we'll try and get it in.